There. And Charles, lead us in song.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is known on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, he profits most to serve the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
Thank you, sir. And please be seated. And let's see, I don't think we have any visiting Rotarians today. And I believe our only guest here is our speaker. And so we will get to Tom in just 1 minute. We didn't have any birthdays or wedding anniversaries or Rotary anniversaries this week, but don't worry, there's still cake. Do we have any happy dollar announcements today, live or virtually?
Justin, I have one virtually.
Let's hear it.
I have I've already told Richard, but I'm going to share the screen real quick. The Community Economic Development Programs of Peace Corps is having a Rotary Peace Corps. This is kind of short notice, but they're going to do it through all of October. And I'll send them as they come through the bulletin. But Thursday, for about 30 minutes from noon to noon 30 our time, they'll be having a Peace Corps Rotary kind of conference session to explain the relationship that Rotary has signed on with Peace Corps. And so I'll send, that's for this week, but coming up, I'll be sending out, including that in the bulletin.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. Do we have any more happy dollar announcements today? Okie dokie. Charles, would you like to give us a foundation update?
I did not have one.
Oh.
Other than the continent of Africa is without polio. So let's give a good hint of that. On the negative side, there was an outbreak in the Philippines. So they're on top of that. Well, that's the main thing. Is Africa is they still need the funds, guys. So consider putting that on your statement when you get it, and we'll hope that continues that.
Great. Thank you, Charles. And thank you for that foundation update. This is our inaugural hybrid meeting, and we hope to tentatively run these for now on the last Tuesdays of the month. And we will continue to monitor progress here and in our local community to see if that is still socially responsible. But for now, we're planning on last Tuesdays. And for those of you that are joining us virtually, we do have a limited menu of some sandwiches and soups and salads and things like that. It's the same price. And at our large tables, we have 4 people each. And at our small tables, we have 2 people each. And so we're still able to do this in a socially responsible way. Any questions on those things? All right. Oh, let me mute that one. And we don't forget, we've had our prospective members. They've already gone through, thank you, their second readings, and we have new member orientation coming up soon. And now we have our featured guest, Tom Langscheid with King Ranch Nature Tours. Thank you, Chris, for bringing him in all the way from the other side of town. And so I will now get out of Tom's way, and he will continue with his portion of the presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Justin. I don't know how much they can hear, but thank you. It's an honor to be here. This is the first presentation I've ever done via Zoom, and kind of in person, this hybrid meeting. It's exciting. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm curious, looking at some of the faces I'm looking back at on the computer screen. It's good seeing you all. Now, I have spoken at the club before. How many of you have actually heard me before? So by a show of hands, I've seen a few hands pop up. So in case I have quizzes along the way, I'm expecting some of you to know some of the answers to this. So yeah, I see. So again, I'm here to talk about the King Ranch Nature Tour program. We just recently got started up again. The overall visitor program had been closed down for several months, and it's really exciting to start to develop the program and to get things up and going and try to move through this challenging time and yet get people out to enjoy some of the nature that is out in the outdoors. So, but with that, let me, one of the exciting things compared to previous programs, we are now over 25 years of doing the nature tour program. So doing wildlife and bird outings. So it's an exciting time to think and reflect back on all the years of all the tours that we have done. And so looking forward to the year ahead and some of the special things that we'll be able to do. Now, one of the things I do want to just kind of recap a little bit, the King Ranch Visitor Program does, the foundation of it is our history, ranching, and agricultural tours. And so that is what the majority of people who come to King Ranch ultimately want to experience, is to go around our daily historical tours, learn about some of the farming operations, and certainly horse and cattle activities. So that represents the foundation of the visitor program. And also within the visitor program, many of you know and have been in the Henrietta Memorial Center, and you may have even been to the King Ranch Museum. And so that's a component of the visitor program as well. So one of the things to think about, the nature tour program is again within the overall visitor program of King Ranch. And so it's part of a family of tours to get people to be able to enjoy a variety of different activities to, to come and visit the ranch. So one of the things that always surprises me a little bit before I get into the nature tour program is the number of people I talk to in Kingsville that say they didn't even know we had a visitor center at King Ranch. By a show of hands, how many of you have ever driven by or been close to the visitor center? I see some hands, a few hands, okay. You know, the King Ranch Visitor Center is located at the intersection, near the intersection of Santa Gertrudis and 141. And given that it's been over 30 years of tours that they've been doing, history tours, and one of my goals is to try to help make people more aware that we do have the visitor center that's out there. We have daily tours. You have guests that come in town. It's a great opportunity to take them on a daily historical tour, as well as, of course, I'm going to sell you on the nature tours as well. But it's always a little, when we have visitors coming into town and they stop and ask somebody where the King Ranch Visitor Center is, and these people in town say, I'm not sure. I think it's out to the west somewhere. So trying to educate people a little bit and make sure we're all aware of what's available. And I just realized there's an apron behind my head here too, a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't distract from the overall thing. There's a little bit of glare up there. But so, and here's a picture of the King Ranch Museum front door. Again, I think many people have been there for special events for the rental area, but the museum itself is a really unique area with a lot of different things on exhibit across the years. And the quarter horse exhibit has continued there, and that's a real special exhibit too. But now getting to the thing that I'm particularly attached to, I started the King Ranch Nature Tour program back in the fall of 1994, And so it is based out of the visitor program, as I mentioned earlier. And so it's been something interesting. I haven't been with the program full time across all the now 26 years, but I have been involved both full time and part time throughout those years. Um, Now, the nature tour program itself all started with a wildlife half-day tour, which is an afternoon tour to get people out and to experience the deer, javelina, different things like that. It makes for a real nice afternoon to get out and see different things. Now, I will say in the early days of starting the tour, I did have some people come back that said, we didn't see zebras and we didn't see all kinds of exotics, impalas. They'd heard stories. King Ranch had a lot of those exotics, but on this part of the ranch, there's not many exotics. So, it's all based on nature, native wildlife that you'll see. And I'll show some pictures of it. But again, the wildlife half-day tour was the kind of the starter tour that we offered. And again, it became a year-round program. And if you've heard my presentation before on some of this, we don't get a lot of people in July and August. It's a tough sell to get people out to look for wildlife, for nature in the summer months. But things really start to pick up in September and October. Now, it's been a strange year with COVID, so things have been a little slower than usual. But again, it's just really hard to get over the fact that this is the 26th year of the Nature Tour program. So excited about that and definitely getting ready for this coming year. This particular season, we are going to be offering 7 different types of nature tours. So, and I'll go through those here in just a little bit. And so when we think about the different type of nature tours, the first one that you'll see listed here is the beginning birding tour. It's a 2-hour tour. It's really designed, some people are pretty intimidated at the thought of getting interested in birds or learning about birds. And we wanted to really provide something that gave some people a little shorter venue to get out and kind of get started with things. One of the interesting things about nature tourism that's going to be interesting is they say one of the popular things that's happened with all this COVID-19 is that a lot of people have increased looking at birds, looking at nature, especially in their backyard. They've come to learn a lot more about what is coming through their backyard. And so there is a growing interest in more people doing birding and wildlife activities. So we'll be interested in see how that all pans out. The second tour that is listed here, that is the wildlife half-day tour I talked about. The beginning bird tour, I should say, starts in the beginning in November and we'll go through February and is offered 2 days in the week. Whereas the wildlife half-day tour, it's a 3.5-hour tour, and that's in the afternoon and typically starts at either 2:30 or 3:30, depending on the time change. We adjust it accordingly so that we can be out during optimal times. That'll start at the end of October and then run through early March. And so again, it's an afternoon tour. It really works out nice. I get a variety of people who come year after year to take this tour because they do enjoy it. And and I even get a few disgruntled hunters that have been off hunting somewhere else. They didn't see their trophy buck and they come on a tour so that they can kind of at least take pictures of some nice deer. So, and they can hang those pictures on the wall. But anyway, so the wildlife half-day tour is a tour that's pretty popular. We also have a longer birding tour that in winter that'll start towards the end of October and go through early March, and that's about 4 hours long. And it gives you a much better overall birding experience. We get out a lot farther, and the number of birds we see definitely increases because we do get to some more remote areas than what we could do on the 2-hour tour. And then another tour that many of you have heard my talk before, have heard about Norius Birding Full Day, the Norius division of King Ranch, where we get a lot of people who come from within the state as well as across the country to go to the more remote Norius division of King Ranch. And so to look for some pretty unique bird species that we have there. These are mainly offered in the fall. We're currently offering them during the month of September and into October. And then they'll start up again in March and go through to mid-June. And I'll talk more about some of the birds that can be seen on that tour, or you'll get to see some of the pictures of those. Now this tour, number 5, is the first of 2 tours that offers an opportunity for people to stay overnight on King Ranch. And so this Deluxe Norreus tour, you actually stay on the Norreus division, and it gives you a really nice opportunity to do some birding on the Norreus division, a lot more time to focus on the birds. And it's such a unique area to be able to spend the night there as well. Now, we only offer that twice in the spring. And you know, it's something that's fairly limited in what we offer, but we offer it when the birding is at its best at the Norreus division. The next one is our big enchilada of tours. We call it the King Ranch Birding Adventure. It's 3 days, 2 nights stay on the ranch. We stay down at the Norreus division, and we visit 3 out of the 4 divisions of King Ranch, looking for a variety of birds. And so we often end up with well over 100 species of birds after that adventure. And people really enjoy that because not only, again, the location that you're staying at Norreus, but also the overall birds that we can often encounter. And then the last tour I want to mention, and this is one that we're seeing a lot of interest in terms of people wanting to do private wildlife tours or private birding tours. These are typically 4 hours in length or 8 hours in length, and it's just for a smaller number of people within whatever group is typically, you know, a husband and wife or 2 people traveling together, or sometimes we can get a little bit larger group, but it's kind of a more intimate type tour where we can focus specifically on the interest of what people want to do. We get some people who do a private half-day tour that just want to go out and look at deer. Again, King Ranch is pretty famous for their deer population, and they go out and we try to find some of the biggest deer that we can find, and sometimes if you hit it right during the rut, you can watch fights going on between bucks. So pretty exciting opportunity to be able to do the private tour. We can often see some of those same things happening on the wildlife tour as well, though. Now, just as a reminder for those that may not be familiar with King Ranch, anyone who's heard my presentation before, many of you may have even been out on different parts of the ranch. These green areas on the map represents the 4 divisions of King Ranch, and the Santa Gertrudis division that we're real close to here just west of Kingsville is where we conduct most of our tours in the winter. Now, again, if you look down in the bottom right portion, that's the Norreus division, and we end up staying down there on those overnight stays, and our Norreus birding tours visit that division. You know, it's always interesting when I get people to sign up for, let's say, the Norreus birding tour, and they hear it's about, you know, it's a 9-hour tour. 2 hours of it involves driving to and from the King Ranch Visitor Center because it's an hour drive down to that gate. So some people from outside the area that aren't familiar with the King Ranch end up learning that there's a lot to King Ranch in terms of how much travel time it takes. You know, I'm going to go through some pictures of some of the wildlife that we can see. You know, I tell you, the fall and winter can just be amazing for the deer that you can often see out on King Ranch. King Ranch has had a long history of deer management, wildlife management, and it really shows in the deer population. And one of my guides has already gone out and taken some pictures. This isn't one of the pictures he took just recently, but he found a 17-pointer that was really quite extraordinary. So this year looks like it could be pretty good with some of the bucks. He was pretty excited when he came back. He'd seen some other trophy bucks, but the size and quality of the deer that you can often see on our wildlife tours can be pretty amazing. And so always good to see that. Of course, people are always intrigued with seeing javelinas, especially if they're not from this area. Those of us that live with javelinas around our yards may not be as attracted to them. Yeah, they have a little bit of an odor to them, but I tell you what, people who come from outside the area, they love seeing javelinas. They invariably think they're pigs. And there's a great childhood book I always talk about that says, "Don't call me pig," because they aren't a pig. And but the javelina is an interesting animal for those that don't have to deal with them in their backyards. So you know, you'll often get to see javelinas as we're driving around on some of our wildlife tours, and you'll even see them on birding tours where there'll be a little bit of a distraction. Of course, people have learned that we have alligators on the property, and there's one reservoir in particular that's holding a pretty good amount of water, Escondido Lake, if you've ever seen that. I've lost count of the number of alligators we have out there, and there's some really big ones out there. So sometimes people are really surprised to see all the alligators that occur out there. So anyway, that's certainly an animal that can be seen wildlife. Turkeys, I tell you, this has been a great year for turkeys, just driving around, scouting a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of turkeys throughout the ranch. Actually, if you time it right, you come out to the visitor center, you might even see some turkeys there too. So the turkeys are really moving around. So it's always neat to have turkeys around, and definitely anyone visiting the area, it's a little surprise sometime to see the turkeys. Of course, quail, we'll see how good the quail numbers are this year. I'm getting a mixed feeling on how the quail will be. I've seen some very small quail so far, which has been a little surprising. So they may have just finished up nesting just a little while ago. You know, now when we talk about birds and birding, certainly the turkey and quail are birds, but we do have a lot of variety of birds, and a lot of those can be water birds when we have our wetlands full, some of our reservoirs. And right now, Escondido Lake that we visit on a lot of our birding tours is filled with a variety of birds. We've had wood storks, egrets, cormorants, pelicans, all sorts of water birds. And so that can be quite a place to go, because we drive up on a levee and look out over the water and see just a variety of water birds out there. And so I'm looking forward to this season for some of the birds that we're going to get out on that reservoir, besides some of the brush birds that we can see as well. You know, everyone that lives down here might be familiar with this species. By show of hand, anyone recognize this bird? They think they can recognize it? Yeah, I know Charles can. It's yeah, the black-bellied whistling duck. And so this is a pretty special duck that we'll see out on the reservoir at times. And there's been fairly good numbers around. How many people think this looks like a duck? It's floating like a duck. It doesn't have a duck beak. Did I see a hand over there? Yeah, this is not a duck. This is actually a grebe. And grebes are very similar to ducks, but their legs are located even farther back, and they can't really walk on land, but they can dive real well. And so pretty unique bird. This is a least grebe. Only place to see it in the United States is here in South Texas. It's a very small bird with a gold eye. And sometimes people think this is some sort of baby duck. But again, grebes are very unique and different than ducks. And not very good eating. I don't think there's a season, right, Charles, for duck, for grebe? But so the least grebe. Again, we get a lot of hawks around. Has anyone seen some of the hawk migration that's occurred? There's been some broadwing hawks circling and kettling around recently. We do get a lot of migratory hawks coming through, but this is one of our resident hawks. If you can see the hawk here, that this is the white-tailed hawk, beautiful white below, gray back, and a snow white tail with this black band. Only place you can see it in the United States is primarily in South Coastal Texas. And so I get a lot of people who want to come and see this particular hawk. Among ranchers here in South Texas, sometimes they refer to it as fire hawk, because when you have grass or brush fires, large numbers of these hawks will come in and circle the fire and catch animals as they're fleeing the fire, hence the name firehawk. So a white-tailed hawk, a beautiful hawk that occurs here year-round. And so, again, I get a lot of people who want to try to get a look at one of these pretty hawks. But keep on a lookout for the migratory ones that are coming through. Just north of us, just to give you a sense of the volume of hawks that can migrate through this area, there's a hawk watch place north of us called Hazel Basemore. And yesterday they counted 85,000 hawks coming over that hawk watch heading this way. So there's a good chance that we could see a good number of hawks in around here, and certainly we'll see out on our tours at times. So we have 6 species of owls that occur on King Ranch. And this is one of the owls that's a winter resident. And so it comes in about November and then leaves in early March. And get a lot of people who want to see this. This is more of a plain state bird, right up through the center of the United States, up into Canada, and then winters here down in southern Texas and Mexico. So sometimes this is an owl of interest for some people. Now, the owl that, if you've heard my presentations before, how many of you think you can name this owl by a show of hands? Anyone? No, there should be more hands. Chris back there, Marty, okay. But this is the ferruginous pygmy owl, one of the rarest owls in the United States. And we have a large population on the Norius division that we're the only place right now in the US where you can regularly see these owls. And they occur down, like I mentioned, at the Norius division, and they're only about the size of a Coke can. But they have a very distinctive call. And let me see if I can toggle up the call real quick. One thing I haven't done, I don't believe, in many presentations is use the call of the pygmy owl. And it has this very distinctive call sound. And so we'll be able to play it here. I'm using an antique MP3 player, just for the record here. But it keys up pretty quick. And so I don't know if you can hear this or not, but this is the sound of the ferruginous pygmy owl. I tell you what, I lead a lot of tours, and I've probably shown more people than anyone else in the United States as a leader, the pygmy owl. And this is a sound I really like to hear when I'm out doing my Norius tours, because these owls, again, they're very small, not easily seen, and when they're calling, very distinctive. And so you can often figure out where they're sitting. So anyway, that was the sound of the ferruginous pygmy owl. But again, these owls normally nest in woodpecker holes, but we also have nest boxes up for them as well. But I tell you what, this is a bird that, again, there's a lot of people in the bird watching world that if they want to see this owl, again, I mentioned we're basically the only place in the US to be able to see it. So there's a lot of people who come to go out on those tours, to go to Norius and see that. They stay in a hotel the night before, go out on a tour early that next morning, and hopefully we come back with having seen one.
What's the origin of that word, ferruginous?
Ferruginous, it's derived from the Latin word ferrous, meaning iron or rust color. And in this picture, you can't really see it, but if you saw the back side of the bird, the tail of the ferruginous pygmy owl is rusty color. And so that's where it gets its name. So you can see on this range map, they're limited range. There is a small population in Arizona, again, very rare there. And then what we have in South Texas. Okay, now, hopefully most of you recognize this bird. This is actually the city bird of Kingsville. I hope everyone here realize the green jay is the city bird of Kingsville. So this is a bird that, you know, while the pygmy owl is one of the most requested birds in general by ardent birders, this bird is one of the most life-changing, I would say, of birds. I get a lot of people who come on our wildlife tours will stop by a bird feeder back in the brush, put out some seed. They're not expecting this bird, and it just blows their mind. They think it's an escaped bird. They think there's no way that's a bird that could live in the United States. And so green jay is pretty cool, but that's our city bird. So I'm hoping everyone's realizes that, so that we can be proud to have our city bird. And those will start showing up again when they're looking for bird feeders as it's starting to get cooler. Here's a vermilion flycatcher. We have these around quite a bit and often get confused for a cardinal, but a beautiful vermilion flycatcher, a bird of the Southwest and a permanent resident on King Ranch. Great Kiskadee. This is a bird that also has a very limited range in the US. You can see by this map that popped up here, the only place to see it in the US is here in South Texas. So I hope you're starting to see a theme that a lot of what drives the nature tour program, particularly the bird tours, are people who are coming to see these birds that are at the very northern limits of their range in the United States. So the great Kiskadee, a beautiful bird that you can actually see in and around Clayburgh County, Kingsville, but we have a pretty good population on the ranch. Tropical Parula. This is one of the rarest warblers in the United States, and the Norreus Division is one of the few places where this bird nests, and it's also one of the few places in the United States where people can see it. And so this is a bird like the pygmy owl that has a very high request rate among people who are coming from outside the area or getting started in birding. If you want to see this bird, one of the best places in the US to see it is the King Ranch. So it's a very small bird, but very, again, you can see the range map pretty limited in the US. And then one of the last birds I'll talk about is Audubon's oriole. This is a bird. How many of you have ever seen this bird by any chance? Because this sometimes strays into feeders. You see an orange here. They'll actually show up in backyards here around Kingsville, Clayburgh County. But beautiful oriole, has a very limited US range here in South Texas. I didn't see any hands pop up, but this is a picture that or a bird that I often get pictures of from people within Clayburgh County and say, hey, what is this thing? And so the Audubon's oriole. Now, in terms of the birds I was talking about, those are regular species. One of the things about this picture, sometimes we see birds that we're not really expecting. You know, some people say, hey, do you ever get tired of doing these tours? Do you ever see anything different? Sometimes you can see something that you rarely have seen anywhere, never seen on the ranch before. The birds on the right, the gray birds, are sandhill cranes, but the one on the left is the whooping crane, pretty famous whooping crane. Back in February 2019, the first whooping crane in, I think it was 60 years to be seen on King Ranch was sighted. And so that was exciting to get out there and see that. So every once in a while you get a bird that gets a little confused as to where it's supposed to be. And but the whooping crane is one I hope we start to see more of. Talk about a bird that was confused. This was down at our Norreus Division. This is a pileated woodpecker. It's about 200 miles south of its normal distribution. And it got lost and headed south and ended up at Norreus. So pretty amazing to see that woodpecker. It's a large woodpecker, so kind of interesting. One of the things that's starting to grow in interest is the study of butterflies and dragonflies. We've had over 60 species of butterfly just around the King Ranch Visitor Center. We have that planted with a variety of plants, but we're getting a lot of interest in people wanting to get out, especially with digital photography, and get pictures of some of these different butterflies and dragonflies. And one of the most amazing things that's happened recently is this is a damselfly. This is called the cream-tip swamp damsel. First time we've ever was found on the US was back in 2004 on King Ranch. This past Saturday, there's been a growing interest in people coming out to see this. And this past Saturday was my first damselfly tour where I had people come in from out of the area, from northern Texas or other part north of Kingsville. And they wanted to see this. This cream-tip swamp damsel, we're the only place right now in the United States to be able to see this. And there is a really growing movement in people wanting to study dragonflies and damselflies. And we have a pretty good population on the Santa Gertrudis Creek, just west of town. And so I not only had a tour, my first one in all those years, since we discovered it and all, people were kind of interested in it, but now they're starting to want to take tours. And I even have a tour this afternoon where I have a lady who's driving in from Port O'Connor, and she wants to see and photograph this damselfly. And so we have special 2-hour tours that we're setting up for people to come out and see that. What I'd like to finish up with is that if you have any questions about our tour program, our visitor program, I do really recommend you check out the King Ranch website. This is a website that you can see the link here. It's king-ranch.com. And then you can go in to visit in our tours, but you can find out more about the information about our tours. So I just wanted to leave you with that, and that's our parting slide. So if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Get back over here. And thank you, Tom, for that. And before you leave, as a token of appreciation, we would like to present you with a Rotary pin. So when you're out on your surveys, then you can use our Rotary pin to jot down your notes. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
sir.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. Was it glue at one time, the Rotary pins?
Yes, I think so. Yes, yes. We have a few things on the calendar. They're on your screen there. More information on the website. Does anybody else have anything for the good of Rotary today? Seeing none, we will quickly go to our weekly pairs. Let me find my pairs. The plight of only having one screen. Okay, this is our weekly leaderboard, and drum roll please in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pair 2, Jay Dean and Mark Walsh. Congratulations for that. Thanks for participating. Don't forget that there's always another week worth of pairs. And now, before we go away, this is our first time to meet in person, and so there's a little bit of catching up that we have to do. We didn't have our in-person orientation and our banquet and all that, and so we have new Rotary pins and gifts for our officers. And so we're going to start at the top with our President-elect. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, please. A token of appreciation and for you.
Oh.
Thank you very much. A little light reading. Let's see, Gary, Allison, Jan, Ricky, Charles, would you please come to the stage, sir? A token of appreciation and some light reading. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see, Janine and Danny and Richard, Veronica, and Lori. Okay, that makes my delivery easier. So to not keep everybody in suspense, not only is it our new Rotary pin, it's a thank you note, and it is a book by one of my favorite leadership development authors, John C. Maxwell, on a little light afternoon read. And everybody got a John C. Maxwell book, but not everybody got the same book. And so when you're done with yours, you can either keep it or feel free to trade it with a fellow director who might have a different title. Collect them all. Now, Jay Dean, except for you, I couldn't find a John C. Maxwell title that I thought would fit you well enough. And so I have something else for you. It's the art of war. I hope it serves you as well as it has served me. It was between that and the art of the deal. So
Sun Tzu, Donald Trump, I'll take it, whatever you got. Thank you, Justin.
So thank you everyone for agreeing to continue or be new leaders in the club. And now, if you will please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And thanks so much.
It's good to see everybody. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Y'all take care.
But good job, Justin. Way to coordinate it all.
Sir. Thank you
All relevant
everyone for
parts.
helping. Thank you, Crystal. Jeez.